I'm not very violent. Or so I feel. We're to Dream Autumn. We're coming so high on Little Rock Arkansas.
Before we start, I'd like to make a dedication of this set, if I may, to Sarah to Dream of August and Jess. Autumn. August is not an autumn. I was just testing everyone. And Jess from Bumblebee. First of all, for being women involved in playing in punk bands. I'd also like to say that this should be dedicated, all of this, to the women who are here and the women who have to suffer all of the social ailments in addition to breast cancer, specifically because of their sex. With that said, this is a decoy 2 cover.
It's a thrash cover.
Most drinkable water comes from Vermont.
Your amp doesn't come with drinking water? This next song is called The Losing End of Race and Real Estate. And I'm actually going to talk about this song and a song I'm going to play later on called L Train to Williamsburg, 7 Train to Relocation. For me, they both have great meaning because they're really about my experience as an educator in Brooklyn and the experience that I've had with gentrification and with living conditions in New York City, which are extremely difficult. I mean, even for people who are very middle class, it's very difficult to find a decent place to live because the housing market, thanks to the wonders and the beauties of the free market, has skyrocketed to the point where really, like, month by month, it gets harder and harder to find an apartment in New York City. Basically, the saddest thing for me is that I have students who are growing up in Williamsburg. Their parents now control houses. Maybe they have low-income housing that they can get into. Maybe their parents have been renting for a while under rent control. But these same students are no longer going to be able to live in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn because in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, there's been a mass gentrification. There's been a huge push to live there because as Manhattan becomes more expensive, people go over the L train and they live in Williamsburg, which used to be like considered crap. It's amazing how people's opinions on neighborhoods, opinions on different cultures of people change. The economic situation changes. Suddenly all these hipsters that you see live in the Lower East Side, I mean, they're practically yuppies. I mean, they don't look like yuppies, but they are in terms of economic standpoints. Start finding Williamsburg just a whole lot more appealing. And it's scary because people live where they want to without thinking about the impact it has on other cultures. Cultures will die and leave neighborhoods to be replaced by pretty much just people who want to live, somewhere to go to sleep. They don't really contribute to the community. So anyway, this song is called Losing End of Race and Real Estate. It's one of the ones we don't really need a PA too badly for. Thus its choice.
Thanks for sticking around after 16 9 bands and 24-hour hardcore marathon.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Is there any other bands? Were we the last band? Did the last band show up?
Thank God the bass drum is behaving like a toboggan.
Let's see. Some of you noticed we have merchandise available on a sliding scale. If you want the details on why, feel free to ask, but the brief version, which doesn't do justice, is that not all of us come from the same economic class, and often the lines of class are not so easy to draw. I mean, there was certainly a time in this country where working class people wore working class clothes, and people who had a lot of money wore fancy clothes, and it's sort of been flipped around now. I mean, quote-unquote fancy clothes are sought after by everyone, so that I have students who are clearly on welfare, clearly get free lunch, clearly don't have much money, but they have a $100 pair of sneakers. You can bet that's because of the social pressure to do so, and you can't really fault the family for trying to make their kid feel okay about being in school. The sad part is that in order to feel okay, you got to wear something really fancy. And as punks, we sort of effectively skew this by appropriating workwear as a type of clothing, which I'm 100% guilty of. But this is a problem because it's no longer clear who's rich, who's poor, and often it's assumed because someone looks like they have a lot of money that they do. Well, we do not presume that, and we do not presume that in order to be involved with this community that you need to have money. A lot of us do. It's sometimes necessary because in order to survive, you almost have to subsidize with your own income, which I think is sad. And so what it really means is that poor people who are not upper middle class like myself may not have the money to purchase an amp or an instrument or whatever else. So our little tiny bit of this is that we have a sliding scale. The lowest price, which is basically making like almost no profit on it. The highest price is very helpful to us and lets us get to the next show. And you have to decide what you want to pay. So if you're interested in any merchandise, that's a dilemma you're going to have to face. You're going to have to think about your class and be honest with yourself. It's obviously not about how much money you have in your pocket now, but how much money do you enjoy in your life over the years. I'm particularly proud of the Priest merchandise that I'm wearing right now. I've never worn one of my band shirts before. I think it's a little weird to wear your own band shirt, or I feel it's weird. I don't really, whatever other people want to do, but I'm so proud of this shirt, and I feel like it's not really a Countdown to Putsch shirt. It does say Countdown to Putsch show, and I put a more important part at the front, in your face part that says, "Poverty is violence, ask me why." And if you're not, a person who's really comfortable speaking in public, that's okay. But if you really want to affect change, you're going to have to try your best to find some way to express yourself in a means that your voice will be heard. It does not have to be through talking in public, but it's a great way to do it. And we hope that you buy the shirt in the hopes that you'll be able to strike up conversations with people. If you're a little worried about the explanation, there is a piece of paper attached to the tag, mine no longer has it, which gives our version of why poverty is violence. And if you have any question about why it is, please ask me why.
And the thing with the sliding scale, it's not to guilt you into paying the most that you can. Really, if you're interested in anything over there and you have to pay the minimum because that's where you are, we're not going to be like, thanks. Thanks a lot, sure.
It's no questions asked.
It's no questions asked, it's trust, and that's obviously how we'd rather things work in general.
If anybody would do that, it would be him. So for him to say that, it's quite funny. Yeah, I just want to add something else to it. All the other bands here are great bands, I thought. But we also do the sliding scale to ask the bands how come they don't do it too. Because we certainly know that all the big insurance companies can do it, right? But they don't. We know what the reasons are. But the things that differentiate us from them hold us to a higher standard. Right? So the question is also, the other people here selling merchandise, we know what we need to make it back. We know what we need to sell it for to make it back. We know what we need to sell it for, and think about sliding scale, because we don't travel that much, maybe not as much as other bands here, and certainly it's an important thing.
This is a Rogers and Hammerstein company.
No joke. All right. Let's go, lungs.
Get more and more out of shape every year.
These guys are so healthy. Prepare for disaster. All right,
Nice.
don't step on it, all right?
Yeah, I'll try it. This next song is about the difference between democracy and oligarchy.
What's oligarchy?
I'm getting there, man. You gotta be patient.
You put
I'm
it on
out of
bread.
breath, I'm like.
Typically, it's made from chickpeas.
Dude,
It's good.
it's kind of like
Kind of roasted, got a little smoky flavor to it.
like if I offer you all the power to rule, right? And I say, okay, I'm in the minority and we're establishing a government and you all have the power to rule, right? At bottom, you have a democratic concept. If only the two of you pick up that power, it is oligarchic because it is the few retaining the power to govern over the many. So what happens quite often is that that which is democratic lapses into that which is oligarchic. It's quite easy to have that happen. In fact, despite some of the very democratic principles laid down in the US Constitution, we have lived under an oligarchy for just as long. Just as long as the Declaration of Independence was written, just as long as the US Constitution, we have lived under an oligarchy. The oligarchy in this country takes its shape by manifesting in the few people who have the most grotesque amount of wealth. There's a 1999 UN report that was released about 8 months ago, approximately 8 months ago, which discloses the fact that the 200 richest men possess 80% of the world's wealth, which leaves approximately 6 billion people to beg and scrape. To beg and scrape for the remaining 20% of the world's wealth. Those 6 billion people are the majority. Is it possible that in democracy they have chosen to be impoverished? Is it possible that that's the result of democratic consensus making? Is it possible that the approximately 6 billion people who are begging and scraping for the remaining 20% of the world's wealth voted that 200 men, and that is men, you know? Different from the way Rousseau would say men, right? Men. Is it possible? Is it possible, or any other author?
I know the answer. No.
The answer is no.
Yes!
You know, he's in the band, and I've given a similar speech, so it's, you know, don't give him too much credit. He says a lot of really stupid things about it.
It's attached down.
But,
It's a complex measure.
Oh my
You have to-
gosh.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Let me just take care of this in the beginning.
Oh, you're taking care of it now?
Yeah, I'm taking care of it in the beginning.
I noticed I threw that plastic on the floor. I'll lose that.
Yeah, I know. Read it.
So this song is called Precision Diction, and it's about speaking about oligarchy as oligarchy at all times. Never letting ourselves believe that we're living under democracy so long as the wealthiest few govern the many.
first one is called Unnaturalization. I wrote it for two friends of mine who they got married when they were 16 because one of them is Iranian. And her parents are Iranian, clearly. And they were getting deported. These are good people. They fled Iran because they were pro-democracy. They were in the pro-democracy movement. They were considered dangerous, so they fled to this country and sought asylum, which they were denied because there's a quota as to how many people may be admitted each year from countries, every country, especially ones we're unfriendly with, and they were going to be deported. So they got married when they were 16 because they were sure they were going to get married at some point after they graduated from college or something, but that wasn't a luxury they were afforded because of the place in the world where this one person was born. It didn't have anything to do with who they were. The parents are excellent people. They're upstanding citizens, blah, blah, blah. It had nothing to do with who they were in specific. It had only to do with where they were born.
And what about the million?
The million is it, regardless of that, if you can prove that you have $1 million, you're considered an asset and you're let in, no questions asked. Not necessarily $1 million, like here's $1 million, but there's $1 million in assets. I own a building, or I have a lot of money in my bank account. You're allowed in, and you're given a green card. So you can buy immigration with money, but hard work and love doesn't cut it. They got married publicly in June, and she still may be deported because the INS is that slow, that bureaucratic. She may still be deported for some time. So
Unless you're Emma Goldman, then you get out real quick for the INS.
the second song is called Feudal Taxonomy. It's sort of self-explanatory, but in the lyrics there's I think there's only one thing in there I need to explain. Top spining is when you get a CD that you get shrink wrapped, and the top has a label on it with the band and the album. It's called top spining because it's more convenient for Tower Records to put it in their displays, because then you can just look down and read who it is and you'll want to buy it more than having to take it out and look at it. And of course, shrink wrapping and top spining dictates that you must put it in a jewel case. So obviously, most people's CDs come in jewel cases, including the cooperative that I help out with. We put out most stuff in jewel cases because it's extremely convenient. But it's really strange when you think about it. You work for years or months, and this is your art. This is possibly what separates you from them, and then you package it in the same way that everybody else does, just because that's the way that it's done. And so in response to that, we did something stupid. Well, no, it's cool, but it's still stupid. We wrote a book. It's 100 pages long. It comes with a CD. It's 72 minutes long. It has a 17-minute interview with human rights activists from Aceh, which is in Indonesia. You can't shrink wrap them, although we tried with the bag, basically. They're hand shrink wrapped. It's a name joke if you buy it, you'll see. And you can't put it in your CD rack, it doesn't fit. So you have to think of some other way to bust, but neither CD nor book. So, thanks for listening. Let's play this.